One of the biggest things I get pushback on as a therapist is the concept of validation. Oftentimes people confuse validation with agreement, and it gets really blurry and nuanced. And I totally understand why it's hard to do, because it's hard for me to do, and this is literally what I do for a living. I see couples, I see individuals, and also work with people who've been traumatized. In my work, I have learned that validation is one of the most important things a person needs when they're trying to heal from past or current hurts. So in this video, I'm going to go over what validation actually is, what it can be confused with, and some of the common pitfalls that people fall into when they're trying to validate people. The first thing is people think validation means you approve what they're saying. Validating is not approval. It's acknowledging a person's feelings and you're reflecting back their thoughts. A lot of people confuse their feelings with their thoughts. So I might fail a test and I feel sad about it, but I'll go talking to my friends and I'll say, I'm an idiot. I'm a total failure because I failed that test. Really, I feel sad, but what I'm telling myself is a thought, I'm a failure. If my friends, what trips people up is people think, well, I'm not going to validate that. I'm not going to agree that that person is a failure. So therefore, the person responds and says something like, that's not true. You're doing fine in school. One F's not going to cost you your grade. Or emotionally in a relationship, people do the exact same thing. A husband sees his wife upset and he asks her, hey, what's up with you? What's wrong? And the wife says, just nobody likes me and I'm just worried about this, and that. And the husband's thinking, you shouldn't be worried about that. That's not really that big of a deal and I want to help you. So then he tells the wife, you shouldn't think that, or it's not that big of a deal. Just get over it. When you say that to a person, because you're confusing validation with agreement of the thought, it ends up leaving that person feeling dismissed and like you don't care. So what you're doing when you're validating is you're validating the emotion and then you're just reflecting back the thought. That would be something like, I could see how you're overwhelmed because you're telling yourself there's just too much to do. Or, hey, that actually does sound stressful. Sometimes when I'm stressful, it's hard to even know how to think. And then your wife says, yeah, and this is going on. Then you continue to validate the emotion. That is overwhelming. Like, that's overwhelming to think it's too much. And I could see how you might even feel powerless to do anything about what's going on. That might seem like you're patronizing or condescending the person, like you're speaking to them like a little bit of a baby. A lot of people will comment online that that's what validation is just patronizing and saying like, oh, you poor thing. What I'm talking about is a genuine expression of, hey, I get that. Like, I could see how that feels that way. You're not agreeing with the thought or the belief. You're just validating, hey, this does make sense. And it's normal to have feelings about stuff that don't feel settled. That's validation. It's not necessarily correction or adjusting or shaming a person. It's just letting a person know you actually hear them. So when you get that part out of your mind, that validation means agreement, it actually positions you way better to help your loved ones because you don't feel the pressure to correct their thoughts. There is a time and a place for correction. Say my wife's believing nobody likes her and she can never trust me again because of something I did. But I do want to gain her trust back, but she's telling herself, you'll never get my trust back. I would validate her emotions, like, you're scared. This is scary to think you won't ever be able to trust your husband again. And I know I did do some stuff that really hurt that trust. When you're validating the emotion, reflecting back the thought, it helps a person organize and sort through their own thoughts. Now, at a certain point, it is okay in the conversation to say, hey, I'm I'm struggling with some of the things that you're saying because I know they're not the truth, but I don't know the best way to tell you that because I want to make sure you know, like you can come and talk to me about stuff you're struggling with. At that point, if the person feels like you've heard or they feel understood, they'll be more understanding if you were to give a corrective thought of like, hey, like I know you're telling yourself that, but also know like last week you told me that I'm a wonderful husband. Or in this situation with the person thinks they're a failure, like, you know, you're really not a failure. Like you've worked really hard. You're just going through a tough moment right now. When you speak to somebody like that, on the back end after doing the validation, it doesn't land as offensive. It becomes more helpful at that point. Another area of validation that people get really confused with is they think people don't need it. They think because someone's an adult, they don't need to be acknowledged or appreciated or validated for the good things that they're doing. That's just a straight up lie. A person's needs are forever. They might get their needs met in different ways. Like a little bitty baby might need you to come cuddle him and whisper in his ear and tell him it's all going to be okay. And an adult might need the same thing. At times it could look different, but a person's needs never change. It's just adjusting and learning how to meet those needs in an age-appropriate way. That's not to say there might not be a time where your wife just wants you to hold her, because that is deeply comforting. But a person's needs never change, nor does their need for validation disappear. If a person's not getting validated in their relationship, they're gonna find it elsewhere. If you want to know the key to someone's future, just look at where is this person currently getting validation. You always go where the validation is. I'm in this video trying to give tools and skills to help validate your spouse so that it doesn't leave y'all in a position where you don't think you can get those needs met through your relationship. Again, validation is not agreement. We all need validation. A lot of people think it's wrong to validate somebody because, again, they think they're agreeing with the thought. It's really hard to validate somebody when their feeling doesn't really match with their thought. So if my wife were to have cancer and she said she was scared, I could easily validate that because the two line up. She's scared because she has cancer and something bad could happen to her. So it's not going to be hard to validate that because it's natural. Oh my word, of course. Like that makes total sense. Like this is terrifying because they seem like they match. It's hard to validate someone when their thoughts and their feelings don't match. Something like I'm scared because you don't. I'm scared because you haven't done everything you said around the house. Or I'm scared because you showed up late today when you said that you would be home earlier. Like that seems harder to validate because those two don't totally line up. The problem that people get into is when that happens, they don't line up. People jump to clarifying or telling the person, no, you know that sometimes I get stuck late at work. Like, you don't need to be scared about that. Like, why are you even bringing that up? Like, chill out. Because they don't line up. If you're trying to help that person who's scared or worried, that's telling you that you might not even done anything wrong, but there's something deeper going on. That's where you would say, hey, like, okay, I'm having a hard time understanding. You're telling me you're scared because I didn't show up. Like, I'm wondering if that's because it felt like you couldn't trust me. And then you would elaborate on that conversation. And then at a certain point, you definitely want to clarify and get back on the same page. So it's hard to validate things when the two things don't line up, the emotion with the activity, the thought, or the belief. Another area that people really struggle with validation is because people do misuse. People do manipulate other people, or they'll do performative acts like crocodile tears to try to get what they want. I'm not saying that you validate someone who is being manipulative or performing, because what you're validating is not real. I'm talking about a genuine expression of emotions. If someone comes to you and they're struggling or they're stuck in their thoughts or they're having negative thoughts attached to feelings or big feelings, you're validating those feelings to help them sort through and organize their thoughts. If the person's being manipulative and they're just trying to do a waterworks show because they want to get something from you, I'm not saying you just validate that and go along with that, because that's not the way you treat a person you're in a relationship with. Relationships and marriages in particular are for mature people, and it's hard to have mature conversations when people aren't acting in good faith. If you found this video helpful, would you subscribe to this page? Leave me any comments or thoughts you have in the comment section. And I have some other videos that go deeper on relationships and a model that I've been developing about how to form a secure attachment with your spouse. Thanks.